We will now be going ahead with the third panel discussion of the day, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be a conversation on the topic of Own the Numbers, Women Leading in Financial Strategy. I'll quickly repeat the topic for the panel discussion right now. This is going to be about Own the Numbers, Women Leading in Financial Strategy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be introducing our honorable moderator first, and then I'm going to be introducing our honorable speakers next in alphabetical order. And then I'll request all of them, the moderator and our honorable speakers, to join me on stage together after all the introductions are done. Ladies and gentlemen, our moderator for the session, Mr. Chintan Patel, Partner, Deal Advisory, Real Estate and Hospitality, Head, Transport and Logistics, KPMG India. For over 25 years, Chintan Patel has been providing advisory solutions to a cross-section of multinational clients, public and private entities in evaluating risks and opportunities of their investments in real estate and also hospitality projects. He has extensive sectoral understanding of both domestic and international, with vast experience across various asset classes, including residential, commercial office, retail, hospitality, industrial, warehousing, data centers, you name it all. I'm sure sir has done it all. He has also been advising clients on financial feasibility assessments, project development strategies, business planning, and financing strategies. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll now be introducing our honorable speakers in alphabetical order. Today we have with us Hina Kamra, Managing Director, Neo Wealth and Asset Management. Hina ji has been in the financial sector for over 30 years across multiple asset classes in reputed institutions and different platforms. Scheduled commercial bank, investment bank, non-bank finance companies, public sector, private credit funds. She is a KPMG certified independent director and is a firm believer in risk-aligned governance and sustainable growth. She is also an active member of the 100 Women in Finance India chapter and also a member of Naritco Mahi. Ladies and gentlemen, today we also have with us Insia Gupte, Director, Advisory and Transaction Office Services, CBRE South Asia Private Limited. Insia joined CBRE in 2018 as an associate director, and since then, her role has evolved and primarily encompasses tenant representation for sale as well as lease transactions, which involves execution and business development all over the city of Mumbai. She is a part of the Mumbai P&L, which involves both mandated and local clients needing office space and defining their strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, please note that she is also an active member of WireNet, a registered not-for-profit society that promotes gender diversity and inclusion in the real estate and construction industry. We also have with us today Monica Pergal, Chief Executive Officer, Bhartiya Converge. Monica ji, with over 25 years of experience spanning consulting, banking and retail, has a strong track record of enabling and scaling global capability centers for Fortune 100 companies. She currently leads the GCC business for Bhartiya Converge, partnering with global enterprises to establish and grow their strategic hubs in the region. She has previously been in leadership roles at Neiman Marcus Group, Lowe Indias, and Goldman Sachs India. Ladies and gentlemen, we also have with us today Reshmi Panikkar, Executive Director, Land and Residential Services, Knight Frank. With over 34 years of experience in leadership positions in top companies, Reshmi ji has handled major projects and key competencies in business development, land management, handling projects, sales, and customer relationship management. She has been responsible for setting up business verticals, establishing key processes, and has a proven track record with expertise in business development, customer management, and of course, corporate governance. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe I have said quite a lot, but then that quite a lot is also an understatement in terms of the massive achievements that all our speakers have for this particular session. Please give them a big round of applause as I invite all of them on stage to take it forward from here. There they are, our esteemed speakers. I'll request all of them to please kindly come up on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, we can do a lot better in terms of clapping and appreciation. If you want a bit of a demo from my end, maybe I can show that to you as well. Maybe clap and do this, clap and do this. Yes, that's how we keep the energy alive over here. Thank you. It's going to be a long day. Awards ke time pe bhi main aap logo ko bolunga to kindly keep up the momentum and the energy going in, but I'm sure this is going to be definitely motivating for all our speakers. And it's a humble request. We would request all our speakers to be seated as per the format over here. Yeah. Otherwise, my videographer might just crucify me later. Kahan kaise bithate ho? Sir, if you may please sit over there at that side.
Which is what I wanted to do.
Huh.
But they insisted that I be in the middle.
Because they have a set format as per the picture over there. So just to keep the aesthetics going in, if you don't mind. Yeah.
I honestly didn't want to be in the middle of this.
But you're definitely leading the charge, sir. Thank you so much. And the timer is over here for your reference. Give them a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, as they begin. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, a big thank you to Reality Plus and the organizers for having this great day and the awards at the end, but more importantly, for giving me this opportunity to be kind of part of a moderator of a very important panel with some great panelists that they've selected. Let me dig right into it. But I think before we do that, can we just have a quick poll? I think the subject that we have is women leading in financial strategy. Any thoughts on, are women better in financial strategy than men? Just finances as a whole. So show of hands, who believes that women are better at financial management than men? Okay. There are more men who believe that than women, but that's a good point because that is something that we discussed over lunch, but that's okay. So that's good to know that there's a smaller percentage that believes that women are better than men at financial strategy. Having said that, let's get into it. I think we'll start with while I think the introductions have been done, I think what I'd request if all of you can take a couple of minutes and just walk people through your background, but more importantly, did you face any stumbling blocks or any hurdles because of who you were as opposed to what capabilities you brought to the table? So why don't we go with Rashmi, you first, and then kind of go in that order, please, if that's okay.
Sure. You want a background and then?
A very brief background, but more importantly, if as
Any
part of
bias?
that background,
Yes.
did you face any of those issues? If you've not, then that's perfectly fine as well.
Right. I'm Reshmi Panikar, an architect from IIT. Began my career in designing with Hafiz, Tatas, etc. But then went on to land management and then moved, joined Knight Frank, and this is my second stint. But for about 16 years, I was also on the other side working with the top developers. So worked in various verticals of real estate. So a lot of things have been done. But here I am, and thank you, Reality Plus. At some point in my career, I did pivot from mainline designing to doing real estate. And there were very few women at that time who were doing the things that I were doing, especially land, which is a lot more complex. And a lot of people have asked me this question that, have you, faced issue being a woman? And I kept racking my brains to see, was there anything? And that's the beauty of Mumbai. And that's the beauty of the professionalism that I have encountered with all the companies that I've worked with. They've always celebrated women. And they've always given us an opportunity. And I've never felt that, I'm an underdog or, there's no preference for women or been short-charged. And I think that's due credit to the kind of professionalism that Mumbai has. And it's such a great pleasure to work. And I think if we stop thinking of ourselves as women and work as professionals and expect promotions and going up the ladder based on our capabilities, I think there's no reason why you can't reach the top, because organizations do encourage people regardless of whether you're a woman. I'm not saying there isn't issues, but I personally haven't faced it.
Perfect. Thank you, Reshmi. Monica, if you want to go next, please.
Thank you, Chintan. My name is Monica Pirgal, a lawyer and a company secretary by training, but currently I do something completely different. So I run a business for Bhartiya Converge, where I enable global companies to come into India, help them set up, grow, scale, transform, all of that, which includes IT, non-IT, everything that I've not studied. I'm a Marwadi. Being a Marwadi and being a girl in a Marwadi family, and adding to that, when all my cousins and my siblings decided not to pursue, professional life or not to study further, I chose to become a lawyer. So it became a double whammy. I was a Marwadi, I was a girl, then I wanted to become a lawyer. And then as a lawyer, you are expected to be assertive because you can't beat around the bush, right? When you are in the room, you need to give your opinion one way or the other. So the challenge that I faced is with all of this cultural background as well, where I was training myself to say I should not fit into the traditional box. I put myself in a corporate room where there were many stakeholders, and I was a woman and a lawyer and was assertive, which was not taken too well by a lot of people. Of course, times have changed now, but I had to prove it. When you show your caliber and when you show what you, when you can display your intent as well as your capability, then everything kind of levels down. But initially, there's always a hitch, thinking that, why is she being so assertive, or why is she saying things? The same thing if a man would say in the room would be accepted, and the negotiation will be so much more, I would say, not so intense. But when I was saying it, they really had to push it back just for the heck of it. Of course, I've come a long way, and so has the fraternity in the legal world. But yeah, those were some initial challenges.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you. I think we'll come more to that part. Insia, if you want to go next, please.
Hi, Chintan. Thank you so much. I'll say this slightly differently, and I had a very different background. I work for CBRE right now in the Mumbai region to transact office spaces, pretty much enclaved in the real estate market in Mumbai, owning the numbers from the beginning and in very different ways, and also, moving with the market. Having said that, when I started my career, it was a very different world. I came from aviation. I flew with 3 prestigious airlines for about 9 years. Coming from hospitality, I don't know how I landed in real estate. I just realized a complete shift, complete change in a lot of things, not just gender, but in terms of the overall aspects of how work life was, corporates were. I was flying, so I was up in the air. I didn't know how to get myself grounded. When I came on ground, I realized it was a completely different world. That, of course, changed a lot of things for me, gave me a lot of resilience to learn how to move around with the flow, with the pace that I was in. Recently, I attended a program initiated by CBRE, which was a balanced program in the Asia-Pac region. And one of the exercises we did in that was about certain phases of life, in about 10 years of each phase, and what it takes for you in that particular phase, what challenges you face, or what upsides you see, and makes you the person that you are. So it's not about the gender, but it's about who you become for the background that you have had or you've come from, professionally and personally. I still remember, when I got married, and, I came from a very staunch Muslim background. Women never worked outside house. I was the first girl in the family who actually stepped out of the house. Things were very different. My parents were very liberal. I was already breaking barriers then. When I married a Maharashtrian, so very different world for me again. Day one, I remember I just stepped into the kitchen to make chai, and my mother-in-law came to me and saying, "Hey, what you doing here?" And I'm like, "I'm making tea." So she's like, "You know what, just chill. I have worked for 35 years. I want you to work. I don't want you to take this obligatory if you're coming in the kitchen. If you wish to come in the kitchen, you come. I never went in the kitchen. We have all the help, so chill." I mean, for me, that was the biggest change. Whatever I am right now in my career, it's, I think, because of the family, my mother, my mother-in-law, my father, my husband. I think it takes a village for everyone to be there, and I think it's just about that.
Thank you, Insia. That was fairly inspiring. Hina, if you want to go next, please.
I come from a family of professionals, and if you remember a little bit of my background, over the last 30
Hina, sorry,
years,
you want to keep the mic closer?
over the last 30 years, I've always been working in the financial sector, but in different parts of the financial sector. And what I like to think about the financial sector, the way I see it, is it's all same, but it's all very different. So if I look at it in terms of experiences, if you look at the banking and financial services, the kind of interactions that you have there, the number of women that you have there, the opportunities that you have there is very different. Now, within BFSI, banks are very different from NBFCs. For instance, I can share with you, I worked in an NBFC from 2010 to 2022. And my first thing was coming from banking over the last 15 years, commercial banks. There were no senior women officials. So when you were at parties, the only other women there are office parties. You have just secretarial women who are there. So this is when I started off in 2010. By the time I left it in 2022, it was a different world altogether. So, things have been changing. Besides that, within financial services, again, real estate financing per se was very, very different. Financing, wholesale financing or private equity or private credit, again, globally is very different because the number of women fund managers per se is very, very low. It's very, very minuscule globally. Now, that brings its own set of challenges. I mean, a basic challenge which I keep narrating is that as a part of, you've all heard about the NBFC crisis that happened in 2018. So between 18 and 22, most of us were busy recovering money, all the borrowers and everything. So there were a lot of tricky interactions that happened. Now, the thing that always stands out is that even in 2020, and this is like post-liberalization in 92, you're talking about of almost 30 years. There are times when you're looking at a borrower, you are the senior most person in the room, and there is no way anyone can say that I lack confidence. Right. The guy doesn't look you in the face when he's replying. He looks at your subordinate. And most of us, when I talk to my senior colleagues in real estate, in banking, on the lending side, we've all faced this at different points of time. So that's it's a part of, I'm not too sure whether it exists globally or not, but in India that still exists, right? So while things are changing, and when Chintan talks about it, probably we can take him through it. But yeah, this was something I thought we should discuss.
Sure. No, thanks, Ina. So I think I'll just kind of have some random questions going on as opposed to structured one. So I think for Monica and Insia, I think you brought about a very important part, right? You came from families which traditionally were not encouraging women to be out there in the role of how successful you are today, right? I'm sure they're very proud of what you guys both have achieved today. But how important do you think is that? And given that being the background, how do you manage your work-life balance today? So if you want to go, Monica, you want to go first, and then Insia, please.
Go ahead. So I think first I want to break the myth that work-life balance is a negative connotation. The moment you talk about work-life balance, people think, oh, it's a balance and it is difficult. It's just the way you look at it, right? One is you should be clear about what you want to do. I got married, I decided to have a child. It was my choice and I have to live with it, and I'm happy living with it. I decided to break barriers, pursue a profession, while also knowing that in a very typical Marwadi family, women are the primary caretakers, irrespective of whatever happens at my workplace. And I'm embracing it and I'm living it. So the moment you start embracing and accepting and be happy with your circumstances, then work-life balance is not negative. You just have to learn to deal with it. And another myth is, you have to always make a choice. It's not about making a choice, work versus life, life versus work. I don't become a less mother when I'm at work. So why should I become a less employee when I'm at home? Because both of it is full-time responsibility. So the way I have managed work-life balance, one is I absolutely love to parent my daughter. I love to, be with my mom because she's a cancer survivor. So whenever my schedule permits, I just get her to my house. I like to spend time with her. I don't treat it like, a task because I enjoy doing it.
But Monica, sorry, just to interject. Does that make it very difficult? Because if you were to look at the male counterpart in your office, they may not have as much in terms of preferences of restrictions to spend time out of office, they may be able to pull longer hours than you. And do you see that as a scenario where you feel maybe no, I should be working harder than what I'm doing today?
Yeah, so again, I'll challenge that longer hours is not smarter hours. So I choose to still get my work done, whether I'm at home, whether I'm driving, whether I'm back home. I'll just figure it out. At the end of the day, am I getting my work done? And my boss knows that. And I think everyone in the world has to accept the fact that we are made differently, physically, psychologically, emotionally. So we do what we have to do, right? That doesn't mean that, unless your boss wants to have more face time with you, that's a different problem. I can't solve that here. But as an employee, if I were to deliver work, I can still deliver it. Being at work for longer hours does not matter. Coming back to work-life balance, how I balance it is basically, and I keep telling this to a lot of younger women in our community, especially because they feel that they cannot work and still have a married life or, have a family life. Just ask for help. There's so much help available. In our times, there was no Zepto, Swiggy, no home deliveries, medicine was not on call. We used to still do all of that physically and still get our work done. Now life is so much easier. You can be driving to office and you can still sort out a lot of things at home. You can make sure that, the help is coming and going, and it's all scheduled, right? It's so much more easier. You don't have to necessarily be a CXO to afford that kind of help. You don't need as much money to get that kind of help. But of course, as you grow in your career and responsibilities increase, I'm telling all the women here, and please take it back to your family, women in your family. Don't try to do it all. You feel like you can do it all. You feel like I may have 2 hours, let me do it. Don't do it, because you can give that employment to somebody else. You use that time to rest up so that you are rejuvenated, you can think better, and you're more productive. So that's my mantra for work-life balance.
Thanks.
Ask for help.
Thanks, appreciate it. Insia, how, so similar question, but if you can put it, because you're into hardcore real estate, right? The sector, right? Is it any more demanding than any other sector, and does that impact your work-life balance? So in that context, please.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yeah. I think work-life balance is in our minds. It's rarely sectorial. It's just about what we want to do, and like Rashmi mentioned, Monica mentioned, it's about prioritizing, it's about understanding on what you need at what time. There's one thing that I've always followed, I've been very ambitious in wherever I've been, and very, very competitive. That kind of gives a lot of stress, right? Because you're always trying to kind of keep up to the pace. I think it's very, very important to understand what your pace is and where you want to be. The most important thing that has worked for me, and I have a daughter who's 9-year-old, very critical to be with her at all times. I live with my mother-in-law. I have a family. I have my parents who are aging. I mean, there are all sorts of things, and just the 3-4 things that your life comes at a peak at. When your career is at peak, your kids are growing up. I remember Indra Nui saying this, and your parents are aging. So it's all together. I think it's very important to be everywhere at the right time, but it's also very, very important to detach. I think what's worked for me is detachment. If I am at work, I have ensured things are there at home. Trust is there at home. I think that's most important. You've got to let go of when you're not there at that time. When you are at home, learn to detach from work, because you got to be where you are physically and mentally. And we tend to, kind of not compartmentalize like you gentlemen do very easily. We kind of jumble it up. We have it all in our heads. We want to do everything. We want to be everywhere. I think I've learned to compartmentalize very well. Be where you are physically and mentally.
Thank you, Insia, that helps. Rashmi, you've been with an Indian organization in the architectural field and now with a global organization. Do you see the difference in how it has impacted the way you operate? And are you treated any differently, you think, because you're now with a global organization as opposed to an Indian?
Not much, frankly. All the organizations I've worked with have been extremely professional. When work is demanded by them, they all expect you to deliver. regardless of whether they are local or international. So I've never felt a difference. Professionalism is the key over there. And like, I understand that for women, what happens is you need to get back home because you've got responsibilities. The difference between a man and a woman is at the end of the day, you have responsibilities at home that you need to get back to, whereas most of the time, the man of the house can come in and ask for dinner. And it's fine. I don't think...
I don't know if the men agree over here, but that's... You can
Yes. No. So I think, no, not at all. So what we women have learned to navigate, and what she said is right. We try to be the best at everything. And I think it's important for us to sort of give roles and responsibilities to people. And if you have the support of the family, there is no reason why you can't do both equally well. And I haven't found a difference between both because even the Indian organizations are sometimes really professional in their approach and they want to bring about the best company that, they are building. So I have really not felt that difference.
Thank you. Hina, anything you wanted to add? Because I have a separate question, but anything you wanted to add on the topic of work-life balance?
I think we've broadly all covered it, but I'll touch upon just a
Hina,
slightly different aspect of work-life balance. I think we all, whether it's men or women, whatever, as we go through different phases in our life, like Insha was saying, our priorities keep evolving, right? So in the initial periods, there's a lot of burnout that happens in the first 10, 15 years as you're progressing through the career. What I always encourage people to do, and I did it for the last 15 years or so, I started giving myself also some time, which was my own time. Because earlier there were no boundaries for me. And that's how I expected my team also to behave. Work never ended and it was 24 hours was not enough. It's not that someone was pressurizing me. I loved it, right? So we just need to balance it out.
So Hina, a specific question I think I wanted to start with you was, what's your view on financial literacy, right? Is there a belief and basis the experience that all four of you have that women either by preference or by design are not willing to take the reins of finance in their hand, despite the fact that, if I look at traditionally back, women ran the house and the house finances and the men ran businesses. Obviously things have changed now, but do you think financial literacy is lacking and what needs to be done for that, please?
Very true, Chintan. I have come across a lot of women and they will be at very, very senior positions in the financial sector who are aware of everything. And so one is, they just don't do it themselves. They're aware, they can do it and they don't do it. There are others, you look at a lot of large business houses where the woman has all the money to spend, but she has no clue about how to handle her money. She has no property which is registered in her name, or she doesn't know the docs that her family is getting her to sign or what is there in her name. And then you also come across a lot of small women entrepreneurs who they may be running a boutique, or some small business or something, but they are just not adept at handling their finances. And this percolates down to a lot of biases also, because again, when you talk about VC funding, a lot of women entrepreneurs believe that there is a gender bias that exists and they don't have access to capital to start their businesses, to grow their businesses. Now, so those things, yes, do exist. How we handle them, how we take care of it through different forums and all is again another topic, or probably from another day, very deep topic.
Sure thing. Any three of you, if you want to add anything to it.
Yeah, so I'll add to this, and yes, absolutely. I think one of the primary reasons we have in terms of, like you rightly said, financial literacy, even though we have financial literacy, I think one of the main cause of concern is our dependability on our families or our socioeconomic aspects around us is very, very high. We don't take financial decisions individually. we tend to rely on families. We do carry a lot of dependability, like I said, in terms of making a decision. Like, if I were to go see a house and, to buy or invest, I'd probably wait till my husband comes over.
Why?
I don't know. I think we've been inceptionally tuned in a certain way, and it's just kind of changing. But you've heard it very differently from your mothers or your grandmothers, etc. So probably we're growing out of that, but we're not completely out of it. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of finances are not unleashed in terms of the way the statutory is looking at, or the way globally or in India it's looked at. There's about $700 million that I was talking of. Is still left to be kind of discovered if only women were to go out and make those financial independence, just kind of rely on themselves rather than anyone else. Pay disparities we spoke about, and a lot of things. But I think it's all about storytelling. It's all about talking about ourselves. It's all about going out there, making it evident that these dependabilities are no more, they need to get independent.
Sure, thanks.
But,
Reshmi, just one.
Can I add one more thing? Two
Sure, please,
interesting tidbits that I'd just like to contribute. A lot of women today are actually becoming active traders sitting at home. So they may be housewives, but you come across so many of them who are trading. So, and on all age groups. That's one. Second, which is again a factual data, and I talk about Japan, which is a very conservative type of a society, and this has existed there at least for the last 30 years that I've been working. They have a concept of Japanese housewives, which are called Watanabe. Sorry, I don't know the pronunciation, but they actually move the markets. So they sit at home while they don't work. They sit at home and move the markets and move the currencies. As a set of retail investors, the sheer mass of investment, the money that comes into the market is so big that they can actually make the yen move by 20%.
Wow, thanks.
Right? So it's the
Interesting.
Aam Aadmi, as a group, you're very, very powerful.
Sure. No, thank you. So, Reshmi, you part of the residential sales as well. Have you seen women participation increasing with every passing year? And is that an indication of where things are headed for us?
When you look at a family who comes to buy a home, we can always sense who's going to be the major decision maker. And very often, it's the woman who decides which is the place that she would like to have as a home. But possibly it's the men who decide the finances. My sense is that, it's growing. In fact, a lot of more women are, for every woman having their own home is a dream that they have. And if they are financially independent, I think that's something that is a dream for all of them. And they do try in their lifetime to have a home of their own. So I think it's very important for women, not only financial literacy, but financial independence, so that these two can help you get whatever you've dreamt of in your life without anyone else's help.
So, Reshmi, that brings me to the next point. Do you think they participate in negotiations or they don't? I think what you alluded to was they don't participate in that. And is that something that's also holding them back from the way they act in their professional lives and just negotiations as part of women?
Women really don't participate in the negotiations, but they play a very important role. When it comes to money matters, most likely in most of these HNI transactions, it's the gentleman who's footing the bill. So negotiations normally happen from him, but his wife plays a very important role in the decision of which home to pick.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Monica, just a question for you. Just generally, we've heard that the overall participation of women, despite being 50% of the economy, is not as high, right? And I don't have the specific statistics, so I'm not going to quote that, but my understanding is it's not as high. What do you think will be needed to change to attract more women to work professionally and even in entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so I mean, if I just take a step back, we spoke about lack of financial literacy in women, lack of financial independence, lack of decision making. I think it all starts from the individual himself or herself, right? It could be male or female. At least what I have seen, and I'm from Bangalore, it's a slightly different culture from Mumbai, but everybody has equal opportunity to do their studies. Everybody has equal opportunity to do their graduation, post graduation, at least in this generation. So you have access to education. Now, what do you do with that education? Are you willing to take it up to the next level? Are you willing to participate? More often than not, I've seen that I come from the same culture, and so do my cousins and sisters, right? They just don't have the interest. They feel like the men will do it, right? And Insya spoke about she will not decide without her husband weighing in on the house or whatever, right? And a lot of us do that. The way I have done it in my life is I, of course, will not decide on a house without my husband being in the room, but I will also make sure that my husband does not decide the house till I am not in the room. So it's a consultation, right? It's a partnership. And that comes only when you're willing to be on the table to participate. Are you willing to learn? Are you willing to understand what is being spoken about? If you kind of shut your mind and say, okay, he's going to take care of it, then he has to take care of it. And that may also happen with another male colleague or male in your family. For me, the situation is different because I'm a lawyer and I lead negotiations. I've purchased 5 properties, and for my parents and for my younger sister, for myself, my husband is with me, but I typically run the negotiations because we understand each other and we know how to play the good cop, bad cop. But that does not come to me because I'm just educated as a lawyer. I'm also willing to do that, right? Many a times you're not willing to do it, and the differences has come because of that, which has led into women having access to education. They are excelling. I mean, today if you look at the results in India, women are the ones who are topping in all educational fields, right? Be it the IITs, IIMs, to colleges, to everything. But why are we not seeing that kind of a growth in the boardrooms or when they have to build careers? Family and the support system is one part of it, but the second part is also your attitude. So my advice when I talk to a lot of younger generation is I mentor them to say that you have to take certain risks. In a room of male and female colleagues, if you ask who wants a promotion, all the male colleagues will lift their hand up, but the females are going to look at each other, right? And that is what I mentor the younger generation to say, just lift your hand up. At least be in consideration. The moment you get the job, you'll figure it out. And don't assume that the males who have risen their hand has figured it out. They are as oblivious as you are, just that they have more confidence. So you just have to take that first step. You have to take the risk and everything will start working out. You are going to learn. Somebody is going to come and help you understand what you lack and vice versa, right? So it'll all be good at the end of the day. Just have the attitude and go ahead.
Thanks. Insia, from a real estate specific sector, and you've now spent more than a decade in the sector, I think that's a sector that has probably been the laggard when it comes to women participation. How do you see, what is your suggestion? How can the sector improvise so that more women join the sector? Because I think the sector definitely needs, I agree with Monica, women are very smart. I think in the sector, every sector can benefit out of them, especially real estate. How can we have more of them participate?
Before I answer that, Monica, I'll ensure that my husband also doesn't leave the room.
It's worth
I
for
do
me.
that, it's just that I didn't put it up. But thank you for that. We all do that. With regards to real estate, and I think we were talking about this, right? 15 years ago when I joined real estate, I was the only female. And it was such a fast-moving, fast-paced industry that it kind of changed even before I realized that women kind of grew from no women to office to almost 50% or upwards. Recently I was just reading the internal data about CBRE itself, and I just realized, which I wasn't aware of, that in CBRE, the equality is almost about 55% where women are there. And in the leadership, it's almost about 40% upwards. And that talks a lot about how the real estate has moved. And, globally, we are the largest. We kind of, are trendsetters when it comes to real estate. And if that's the story we have internally, I'm very sure our peers have similar stories, whether it's Knight Frank, JLL, etc. So that's really moved ahead. What I've also witnessed is in the developer field, in the architectural world, in the managed office operator or the co-working operator, which is the newest sector, is just evolved, and we see equal participation, in terms of hiring. In fact, I have a team of 7 girls, and I have only one of them, Om, sitting there, and he's come to cheer me. I've been looking for a boy in the team. I've been told by my bosses that you must hire, a guy in the team. I mean, it's just, we have so many of them already there, already wanting to be in real estate, already forthcoming, and somehow, the trust has been equal, whether it's men or women. I think there hasn't been any gender biasness, at least in the last 10 years that I've seen. It just moved at a very, very fast pace.
Thanks. Reshmi, if you want to add anything.
Yes, so real estate has been pretty welcoming to women, especially in certain sectors like CRM, sales, business development, and all of that. So there is scope for women, and they bring a lot of EQ, empathy, especially when it comes to client-facing requirements. And they're also very sincere. So I've seen most real estate organizations welcoming women. Of course, the numbers can definitely be improved. But I think for that, the women ourselves, I think we are our worst enemies. We tend to give up in life in the face of challenges. So we have to go through marriages, children, looking after aged parents, etc. And then, some of us decide to just give up and say, look, this is too much for me. I want to stay at home. And I think that's the first challenge that we ourselves have to realize, that unless you want, you're not going to be able to participate and be financially independent. So that's the first thing. And if I look at it from a perspective not only confined to real estate, but in general, I think we have to normalize right from when a child is born, be it a boy or a girl. We need to normalize caregiving, household duties, etc., and train both the boy and girl child that you're equal. And you need to, when you grow up, be understanding of your partner and ensure that they also are able to fulfill their wishes. And then, so be it real estate or any other field, I think that when it starts from the ground roots, it definitely is going to make an impact. And the government definitely is trying to promote women in various sectors. So you need an independent director, you need to have one woman as a director. They're also trying to make these regulations to ensure that there is good gender diversity. I just hope and pray that this is enforced and more women come into the field, be it real estate or any other sector.
Sure. Hina, a question for you. You come from a pure play financial background, right? Is the participation different in the world of, your part compared to kind of being on the developer side?
Yeah, it varies. Like I was mentioning before, if you look at banking, the female participation is far more higher. In NBFCs, it's slightly lower. On the fund management side, it is even lower. And the other thing which I was mentioning to Chintan the other day, when I looked at my counterparties when I was on the lending side, who were the developer world, I think in the whole country, and I was handling all the metros, I would have come across just 2 or 3 women CFOs. So on the developer side, why are women not there in the world of finance? Why are they not handling the funds? Why are they just in marketing, HR, or enterprise, or CRM? Why not more women in legal? Why not more women in finance? So yes, so there are things that need to be done. The other thing is that, which is true across sectors, we have a lot of female participation in the initial period because the level of education is very high. But between 30 and 45, a lot of women fall out of the workforce and then cannot come back to the workforce. Now, what we need to do across organizations is have work from home policies, flexible timings, creches, and stuff like that, which allows women to come back. I think in the last few years, a lot of organizations across sectors have felt that there was a lot of potential talent. There's been a talent shortage in India. We know that. So they have been trying to get women to come back to work with flexible timings, because that is a talent pool that is already lying there. So more of this, I think, would help more women get into the C-suite, and the gap that we see in middle management in terms of women, that can start filling up. So
Perfect. No, thank you. I think we're just almost out of time, but on a lighter note, I just hope that more developers have daughters. And the reason I'm saying this is a lot of developer daughters have, and I can tell you from my personal experience, have moved up and have started taking reins of companies, and I think they're doing exceptionally well. There is no doubt in my mind that they are anywhere short of their counterparts. So I think probably that is one of the things. On a lighter note, I said it. But I think with that, I'd just like to thank again Realty Plus and the team over here for having this panel. I think time is up, unless there is anything else. I don't know if there is time for some audience questions, one or two left, or we wrap up over here.
Well, I wish we had that time, but then, sir, apologies for the same. We're already running a little late. Please give them a big round of applause. I don't know if my mic is working. My mic is working right now. Thank you so much for being such a wonderful panel.